Hello, everyone.
Record.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Dick Walker. Many of you know me. And I'm presenting today on a subject that for some of you may be new and very different. For some of you may be, you know a little bit about redox and redox biochemistry and redox signaling, but that's what we're going to talk about. If you're a healthcare professional that got your education more than 5 years ago, you may not have heard much of anything about redox during your education. If it's been more recent than that, and I certainly fall into that category, and so I'm self-taught about this subject. But if you've been through your biochemistry and physiology more recently, then you may be to some degree familiar with this topic. But we're going to talk about the role that redox and redox biochemistry plays in health and wellness and disease. And then we're also going to talk about the only supplement in the world that enables you and your patients to replenish their body's supply of redox signaling molecules. And by the end of this presentation, hopefully you'll have a pretty good understanding for why that can have important implications for people's overall health and ability to resist and overcome certain medical issues. So I'm going to share my screen now so that I can go through a PowerPoint with you and get you up to speed, at least to some degree, on redox signaling, redox physiology, and how that can benefit you and your patients if you decide to engage with it. So a little bit about me. I've been a physician for 38 years. I'm retired now, and I am full-time recommending Asea to people and teaching professionals about it. I'm an entrepreneur and educator. I used to climb mountains all over the world. I've climbed Everest, McKinley, Aconcagua, places like that, places where one gets very short of breath and has to deal with limited oxygen. And I've been recently appointed to the Asea Medical Professional Board. So I feel relatively well qualified to talk to you about redox. You know, what's my purpose today? My purpose is really to educate healthcare professionals about redox. One of my overall purposes is to really be a force for good in the world and to enrich others' health and lifestyles through the business model afforded through Asea Redox, and inspire others to live more healthy, purposely healthy lives. So let's get started. We're going to talk today about an area of knowledge that has really led for me to my biggest breakthroughs in my career and in my understanding of this subject. And that is the area that previously I didn't even know I didn't know about. I certainly didn't know about redox until a friend of mine mentioned it to me about 9 years ago. And at that point, that started my journey on educating myself on this and starting to consume the product myself and recommend it to literally hundreds of people over the last almost 9 years. So let's talk about the science and technology of redox. You know, why is redox signaling so important? Really because it's an absolute requirement for healthy functional cells. And our body depends on cellular function because dysfunction is at the root of all illness. And trying to help people who are suffering from a variety of serious health challenges without first correcting their deficiency in redox signaling is really a lot like trying to play darts with your hands tied behind your back, or even better, trying to play pool or ping pong blindfolded. It just leads to frustration. And many of the failures that you see in your clinic, if you're a hands-on health professional, may actually not be due to a lack of proper medication. It may be due to a lack of redox balance in their body. And what you often find is when you correct that, then all of a sudden things start to work, medicines work better, the body works better, and health improvements follow. And what we're talking about here is a technology that influences the causes of the problems that people have, not just the symptoms. And by alleviating or improving the causes, the symptoms then improve or disappear. A much more sensible approach than sweeping the problem under the rug by simply giving medications that control symptoms. And many times in conventional medicine, that's really all we have, because we don't have medicines that address that adequately address some of the problematic health challenges of the day. So this redox breakthrough is really the single greatest health science breakthrough of my lifetime and your lifetime. Certainly, it has the potential to spearhead the greatest advances of health that we have seen. And we're already seeing that. I've certainly seen it with people that I've recommended Asea to. And increasingly, people are starting to understand that this is a major new category that affects health and wellness in dramatic ways. And a whole new area of science, actually. To understand redox, we really have to start at a very foundational level. We have to start with atoms and molecules and cells, because the human body is made up of trillions of cells that are made up of molecules and atoms that form the building blocks for structures like nucleus, cell wall, mitochondria, ribosomes, all those things that make the cell a living thing. Molecules as biochemistry that provide the function for those cells. Molecules for information processing, and we're going to talk about that today. Molecules as a primary means of communication between cells, and we'll also be discussing that. But molecules are really the foundation for all healthy functional cells. And this class of molecules called redox signaling molecules are extremely important in that regard. So what is life if you get right down to the basics physically? Well, it's really a continuous complex series of chemical reactions between molecules, between different types of molecules. And those interactions lead to certain end results, like the process that your liver performs or your kidneys perform. That all starts at the cellular level. And those chemical reactions are supervised by a complex genetic code, but the issue of how does that code get transmitted to the cells at the molecular level is all tied up with these redox signaling molecules. All this biochemistry needs coordination and control. Otherwise, you just have chaos. You wouldn't have a healthy life, because without that effective control, life and health simply don't happen. And at the foundation of that is information and communication. More specifically, redox signaling via redox signaling molecules to organize and control that information. What is redox? Well, redox is a word made up in the scientific community to describe a group of chemical reactions that involve oxidation and reduction, or reduction and oxidation. It's all about moving electrons. It's all about molecules gaining or losing electrons. Oxidation is the loss of an electron. Reduction is the gain of an electron. At the cellular level, it maybe is a little bit easier to think of this in terms of oxygen, because we are oxygen-based critters. Without oxygen, we don't survive. And cellular respiration, as opposed to breathing, is a redox process using oxygen occurring in the mitochondria, transforming the energy stored in nutrient molecules into biological energy, or ATP. A byproduct of that is carbon dioxide and water, as well as reactive oxygen species, reactive nitrogen species, and what we call redox signaling molecules. They're made as a byproduct of energy production, metabolizing the food that we eat to create that ATP energy. And these redox signaling molecules serve as regulatory mediators in a variety of signaling processes throughout the body, playing a role in maintaining redox homeostasis. What exactly is cellular respiration? I don't want to get into the details here, but suffice it to say that in terms of oxygen utilization, oxidation is gaining an atom of oxygen, and reduction is donating an atom of oxygen. This is a process that happens in the mitochondria. And if you look at this simple chemical equation, H2O, which is water, plus oxygen equals H2O2, which is hydrogen peroxide, that is a coupled redox reaction. And that happens all the time in our mitochondria in the Krebs cycle. And in fact, H2O2 is a reactive oxygen species and happens to be a very influential redox signaling molecule. Let's talk for a minute about antioxidants, because those are tied up with this discussion of redox. What do antioxidants do? And I think many of you already know this, so this is kind of a review. But antioxidants act as electron donors to neutralize what are called free radical molecules, or reactive oxygen species, ROS. They help to control oxidative stress in our cells. You can have native antioxidants because all of our cells are capable of making very effective antioxidants, such as glutathione or superoxide dismutase. Or you can look at plant antioxidants that you can consume in your diet, which are far less efficient than the ones made in our cells, but they do help supplement antioxidant properties, especially in the plasma, if not so much inside of our cells. And it's important that we have adequate antioxidants intracellular as well as extracellular or outside of our cells. And the best way to augment the antioxidants within our cell, quite frankly, is to supplement with redox signaling molecules. They also minimize damage to DNA and other cell structures, but concentrating so much attention on antioxidants is really old thinking, because science has moved beyond that to a discussion of redox and the role that redox plays along with antioxidants. In fact, the Society for the Antioxidant Biology about 5 years ago changed their name to the Society for Redox Biology and Medicine to emphasize the fact that the emphasis in research is now on redox biology and not so much antioxidant biology. What are reactive oxygen species, and are they good, bad, or ugly, or what? Well, they're all of the above, depending on the concentration, their location, the cycle that the cell is in, the type of reactive oxygen species, the redox potential of the cell. And not all reactive oxygen species are free radicals determined to damage your cells. A crucial role as signaling mediators and regulators is evolving, and a better understanding of that is fueling this surge in interest on redox. It's complicated, and scientific investigation into the beneficial role of these molecules is expanding rapidly, with many millions of dollars being spent on determining the roles that reactive oxygen species, redox signaling molecules, the roles that they play in maintaining health at the cellular level. And many of the more important redox signaling molecules actually are reactive oxygen species. Now, what I'd like to do throughout the rest of this presentation is document what I'm talking about with information from the published literature. In the interest of time, I'll just show you a few articles referencing each of the topics that I'm discussing, but it'll give you an idea of where you can go to look for more documentation on this subject. But here's an article, Free Radicals and Antioxidants in Normal Physiologic Function and Human Disease. Here's another one, Signal Transduction by Reactive Oxygen Species. And I also want to draw your attention to that little box in the lower left that shows that this is the fourth reference in a list of 2,916 published articles about reactive oxygen species and cell signaling. So there's a lot of information out there available for you to review if you want to look further. Reactive oxygen species, homeostasis and redox regulation in cell signaling, really talking about the central role that these molecules play. What is cellular communication? Well, it's a scientifically documented mechanism of cellular communication essential to the function of normal physiology. There's a lot of information processing going on at the cellular level, far more than in even the hugest supercomputer in the world, just to keep our body alive and well. And key in coordinating a wide range of biochemical and physiologic processes is this element of communication. Our lives simply are not possible without the benefits of the information processing and communication provided by redox signaling molecules. Here's another article, Redox Homeostasis, the golden mean of healthy living. These are important molecules. This is an important new category of science and supplementation. Here we have an article that was number 19 out of 34,427 references. So this is not a little subject. This is a subject that is attracting major research and attention. A few facts about redox signaling molecules. You know, they're a byproduct of aerobic metabolism. So every cell in your body is making these molecules. So they're native to the body. We're going to talk about a supplement that has molecules, signaling molecules that are also made to be identical to those native molecules. They're formed in the mitochondria, as I mentioned, as a byproduct of energy metabolism. They naturally occur in every cell. They're very small, 3 to 4 atoms, so they go throughout your body. They pass through the blood-brain barrier without any problems. And in fact, they're made in your central nervous system. They're very short-lived. The ones that are naturally made in your cells have half-lives in the millionths of seconds. The ones that are in the supplement I'm going to talk to you about have a half-life of about 3.5 hours. This is an area of intense research in the biological sciences right now, and has been for the last 5 to 10 years or so. It is a relatively new science. It's an excellent business opportunity because, quite frankly, hardly anybody knows about it. These molecules can be beneficial for just about everybody, and the company welcomes new health professionals to help spread the word and to help educate people on this science. So redox signaling molecules are health at the cellular level. They play a critical role in regulation of all major body systems. They play a critical role in gene expression, giving life-sustaining instructions to your cells in a clear and concise manner. As we age, our cellular communication breaks down, and I'll talk about that in a bit more detail in a few minutes. Regulating gene activity with redox signaling molecules keeps our cellular communication strong and accurate. If you're a scientist, you might be saying, yes, Dr. Walker, but give me some examples of redox signaling molecules. What are you talking about? Well, this top row are redox messenger molecules: superoxide, hydrogen peroxide, hypochlorous acid, nitric oxide. There's about 16 or so molecules that have been identified as redox signaling in nature, and they affect transcription factors which affect our genetics or interact with our genetics. Things like NF-kappa B, NRF2, TNF, tumor necrosis factor. We'll talk about those in a little bit more detail in a few minutes, but suffice it to say that all of those things are regulated by redox biology and redox molecules. So a little bit more about redox signaling and cellular communication. Redox signaling is a scientifically documented mechanism of cellular communication that's essential to normal physiology. A huge range of biochemical and physiologic processes critically depend on redox signaling to make things work the way they're supposed to. Your liver wouldn't be detoxifying. Your kidneys wouldn't be eliminating certain waste products. Your heart wouldn't be pumping blood if it weren't for effective redox signaling. They regulate every major body system at the cellular level. Asea Redox, on the other hand, is something very special. Up until now, we've been talking about the general properties of redox signaling. Now I'm going to switch gears and talk more specifically about a product called Asea Redox, a cell signaling supplement. It's the first and only supplement on the market that contains active redox signaling molecules that work at the cellular level. And if you want an overall explanation for what these molecules do, they protect, they rejuvenate, and they restore cells. Does it make a difference? Absolutely. I've seen it make a difference in so many patients' lives that I've quite frankly lost track of how many. Is it safe? Absolutely. It's the safest recommendation that I ever make to anybody is to try this redox supplement. Are there any side effects? No. Are there any allergies? No, because the molecules are native to your body. Your body knows exactly what to do with these. It just doesn't have enough in many circumstances to keep you at a peak level of wellness. Is there any toxicity? No. And in fact, in trying to identify what's called a lethal dose 50, in other words, the dose that would kill 50% of some lab animal study, they were not able to identify a lethal dose with this technology. It doesn't hurt anything at any level. Can everyone take it? Absolutely. Are there any contraindications? No. Are there any age limitations? Not really. Does it interact with any medications? It does not. What it does, though, however, is sometimes ameliorates the need for medications or the need for a certain amount of medications. And so it's just good to be cognizant of that fact as you start somebody on this supplement. How do we know that the body takes advantage of an additional supply of redox signaling molecules when we supplement? Well, we're going to talk about that in a minute and the research that is showing that. Let's talk about a minute about aging and redox, because what's the connection? Well, we know from the scientists' research that every 10 years of life, our production, our native natural production of these molecules declines by about 10%. So by the time we hit 50 or 60, we're at less than half of what we were producing when we were very healthy teenagers and young adults. And as that RSM production decreases, we see a progressive increase in all chronic diseases. And that's not accidental. Now that we can restore more youthful levels of redox signaling through supplementation, we can have a significant impact in these areas. Cellular aging is by far the most common risk factor for all chronic diseases. Decreases in redox signaling contribute to increases in diseases, and that's a fact that is irrefutable. Why is that? Because of an impaired ability to control biochemistry and physiology, decrease in epigenetic signaling necessary for appropriate DNA expression, decreased ability to repair cellular damage that is an activity that is largely directed and determined by redox signaling, decreased ability to replace severely damaged or dying cells, also controlled by redox signaling, decreasing levels of detoxification, more scientifically termed autophagy, needed to rid cells of accumulated debris, and decreases in immune protection from infections and cancer, and an increase in autoimmune issues. And these are all things that we see that accompany a decrease in redox signaling molecules in aging. Can we do anything to improve it? Well, yes. And by changing our focus away from individual diseases that we see happening more commonly in aging and onto modalities that can actually increase or improve the aging process by improving the concentration of redox signaling molecules and other factors that commonly occur with aging, we will have a far greater effect on all of these diseases that occur with aging. As long as we start to consider aging as the greatest single risk factor for all of them and start to focus on ways to counteract that. So what does the science tell us about redox signaling and some of these issues? Well, here was an article on redox signaling in neurotransmission and cognition during aging, 34,000 articles. Redox biology and neurologic function dysfunction and aging. Redox signaling in skeletal muscle, role of aging in exercise. It's difficult to maintain muscle mass as one ages, and a lot of that has to do with redox signaling as well. Muscle recuperation after injury and after surgery are all influenced by redox signaling. By far the most powerful anti-aging discovery of our lifetime is Asea Redox, is being able to supplement with these powerful redox signaling molecules. Here's a friend I'll call Rosie, who had all kinds of symptoms, all kinds of complaints at age 84, none of which were really amenable to medication as a solution, other than to perhaps control some symptoms. But she decided to take Asea Redox, both internally and externally, using the Renew 28 product. And you can see the difference as early as 7 weeks. You can see a difference in how her skin looks and how much younger it looks. And you can see the difference in her facial expression and her eyes. And, she went from 84 to 87 and says that she feels far younger than even the 84. And so that's the kind of difference that redox supplementation can make at a clinical and practical level. Aging also has problems due to chronic inflammation. That's another major determinant of the problems that we develop with aging. And in fact, immunosenescence is a new branch of age-related research, looking at the problems that develop when our immune system doesn't work as effectively. And it's associated with a loss of redox balance and homeostasis. Chronic low-grade inflammation is a highly significant risk factor for morbidity and mortality in older patients. And the lack of control of inflammation correlates with the decreased production of redox signaling molecules at the cellular level. So by supplementing, we can sort of pour some water on the fire of chronic inflammation. What's science say? The role of redox signaling in neuroinflammation and neurodegeneration, 7 of 34,000 some articles. Reactive oxygen species, inflammation and lung disease, 32 of 230 references talking about the role of redox signaling and lung inflammation. Oxidative stress and chronic lung disease, from mitochondrial dysfunction to dysregulated redox signaling. So the scientific community is paying very close attention to the role of redox signaling in chronic inflammatory conditions and many, many others. These molecules are being studied around the world. I would venture to say that every major health science institution in the world has some level of research effort into further understanding what these molecules do in health and disease. We have a lot of scientific validation. There are actually over 30,000 reference studies if one goes to a database like PubMed, and there are over 100 books now published on this subject. When I first started looking at this almost 9 years ago, there was hardly any of that information available. And Asea Redox cell signaling supplement is the first and only supplement that allows us to supplement our native supply of these molecules, which is dwindling as the years go by. And for many other reasons, we can have deficiencies in that area. It's not a vitamin, it's not an antioxidant, it's not an exotic juice. It has significant impacts regarding antioxidants, and I'll talk more about that later. But it is not anything like any conventional supplement that you might be taking or considering. The process of making it may sound simple, but it's devilishly complex. And as testimony to that, we've been in the marketplace for over 11 years, and we have no competition. Why is that? Because nobody else has been able to figure out a way to manufacture and stabilize these molecules. We start with very pristine salt water. It goes through a patented proprietary electrolytic process where certain parameters are altered to develop this product that we call Asea Redox. What exactly is Asea Redox? Well, it's a proprietary and patented combination of redox signaling molecules formulated specifically to safely optimize the physiologic signaling effects of redox signaling molecules on our cellular biology. It's protected by both patents and trade secrets. It's owned by Asea, a biotech company located in Pleasant Grove, Utah. The mechanism of action of Asea when it first came to the market was really still relatively unknown. The company knew that it did some very good things for people. They had done some feasibility studies. They elected not to go the pharmaceutical route because of the potential problems with getting a product like this approved. Number one, it's a natural product. It's native to the body. They couldn't show any toxicity. There would have been some major roadblocks to that approach. But because it's entirely safe, and we knew that it was benefiting people, the easiest way to get this out to you and I, and for you to get it to your patients, is for it to be a supplement, and that's really what it is. But Asea has, over the years, spent a lot of money doing research or having research done by outside agencies to better understand why are we seeing these tremendously beneficial changes in people? What is going on at the cellular level? And so Asea went to a group at Torre Labs, which is a genetic research organization, and they said, could you design a study that could show us whether consuming Asea Redox has an effect on the epigenetic signaling from our chromosomes? Could that explain the benefits that we're seeing? And if so, would it be possible to identify certain patterns of epigenetic influence attributable to supplementing with the Asea Redox? And how long would those changes last if we saw beneficial changes? And why would we think that epigenetics was an area that we should take a look at? Well, here's some science that led us to that belief. Cellular redox, epigenetics, and disease. Redox regulation of genome stability in epigenetic pathways expression. The redox basis for epigenetic modification, mechanisms to functional consequences. So the study came about by Torre Labs. The average age of the study participants was 35. It was a well-designed study. The control was salt water. So we were testing redox against salt water. And it was a double-blind, placebo-controlled crossover washout. All of the statistical inputs that you need to be able to make conclusions from the results of the study were taken into consideration in this study by Torre Labs of Asea, trying to determine what, if any, effects was taking 8 ounces of Asea a day going to show on what we call signaling pathway genes. Signaling pathway genes are genes that control the flow of information from our chromosomes to our cells. They aren't genes that control a specific trait like eye color or hair color. They're more important than that, actually, because they are much involved in all of the information necessary to get our cells doing what they're supposed to do. We found that there were big influences in 5 areas that could influence millions of Americans: autoimmune, inflammatory, cardiovascular, digestive issues, hormone issues. And in fact, we found a significant 20% or greater improvement in 5 different signaling pathway genes. And if we take a look at just one of these, the EGR1 gene, to see how significant these kinds of improvements can be, when we take a close look at the EGR1 gene, we see that this controls 9 separate genetic pathways, and some very important ones. The NRF2 one is the gene that controls antioxidant production. Insulin signaling controls insulin sensitivity, has a big influence on blood sugar issues. Brain-derived neurotrophic factor has an important role in recovery from neurologic trauma and issues. So this one EGR1 gene has huge impacts on our health and was found to be increased by taking 8 ounces of Asea a day. Interestingly enough, in the washout part of these studies, it was shown that the benefits had terminated after about 4 weeks. So the answer to the question, do I need to continue to take Asea if I want to continue to get the benefits? The answer is no surprise, it's yes. So let's look at that one gene that was one of the genes that was improved, signaling was improved with the EGR1, and that's the NRF2 gene. That's the gene that's responsible for our cells being able to produce their own antioxidants, specifically glutathione and superoxide dismutase. And what we find in nature is that in order to stimulate the NRF2 gene to make antioxidants, there first needs to be some sort of inflammatory problem with the cell, either injury or whatever. There has to be increased oxidative stress, and then the body responds by producing more antiacid or more antioxidants. What we find with Asea is that we short circuit the need for the inflammation or the injury, and taking Asea directly influences the NRF2 gene to make more of these very beneficial antioxidants. And what's interesting is we see this same sort of response with what I call lifestyle improvements. If you exercise, you increase your NRF2 gene expression. If you get the right diet, if you sleep, get the right amount of and type of sleep, you improve your NRF2 expression. So in essence, taking Asea, redox signaling molecules, magnifies lifestyle improvements and also mimics or duplicates what you can accomplish by lifestyle improvements such as exercise, diet, sleep, etc. So you get a double whammy of improvement. So we found in this study that these were the 5 areas that were improved by taking redox. Let's look and see what the science shows. Let's look first at immune system. Redox modulating agents in the treatment of viral infection, certainly immune system regulatory issues. Redox regulation of T cell receptor signals, intracellular redox signaling as novel antiviral strategy, another immune system issue. Innate immune signaling proteolytic pathways in resolving SARS-CoV-2, another immune and innate immune issue, something that Asea enhances. Let's move on to helping to maintain a healthy inflammatory response. Point number 2, inflammatory bowel disease, mechanisms, redox considerations, and therapeutic targets. Potential role of antioxidant and anti-inflammatory therapies to prevent severe SARS-CoV-2 complications, the out of control immune response to COVID that sometimes results in really bad outcomes for patients, what's called the cytokine storm, is to a significant degree regulated by redox signaling. Let's look at point number 3, helping to maintain cardiovascular health and support arterial elasticity. What do we find in the research there? Where is redox involved there? Why would we think that improving redox homeostasis would help there? Here's an article, Redox Signaling in Cardiac Physiology and Pathology, 8 of 2,916 articles. Redox Signaling Pathophysiology of Hypertension, 24 of 1,900 articles that address those issues. Involvement in NRF2 and myocardial ischemia, that's a heart attack. It's problems due to lack of oxygen to the heart muscle and reperfusion injury. 5 of 2,900 articles. Redox signaling of angiogenesis. Angiogenesis is part of the healing process after a heart attack. restoring circulation to that damaged muscle. The role of redox signaling in epigenetics and cardiovascular disease. Again, are you starting to see the point here that redox signaling in a number of these areas is crucial to the physiology involved? Impaired vascular redox signaling in the complications of obesity and diabetes mellitus. Diabetes mellitus is at its foundation a vascular disease and not just a blood sugar disease. So we're down now to, we're down now to number 4, improved gut health and digestive enzyme production. Here's an article, redox signaling mediates symbiosis between gut microbiota and your intestines. One of the major reasons why certain bacteria in your gut bring about beneficial changes in your body has to do with redox signaling. Last but not least, modulating hormone balance to support vitality and wellness. Redox imbalance in diabetics. I'm looking this at the standpoint of insulin being a hormone-like substance, and we find that redox is very important in things like insulin sensitivity. Epigenetic regulation of redox signaling in diabetic retinopathy, a major cause of blindness in diabetics. Redox signaling in diabetic wound healing, improving the ability of a diabetic to repair wounds is huge because they frequently end up with amputations due to wounds on the lower extremities that won't heal. Redox control of skeletal muscle regeneration is important in aging because as we age, we have an increased difficulty maintaining muscle strength and endurance and regenerating muscle after injuries or surgeries. How does the macula protect itself from oxidative stress? I bet you can't guess that redox signaling is involved here in protecting the macula, and macular degeneration is a major cause of blindness in the elderly. Being able to protect those macular cells with better redox homeostasis could be huge for people of advancing age. Redox basis for exercise physiology. So even, and I mentioned that the benefits of lifestyle changes like exercise are very similar to the benefits of taking Asea Redox, and they magnify each other. So you'll get even more benefits from health benefits from exercising if you are also consuming Asea Redox. So we've gone through all 5 of these now and seen the scientific underpinnings of why supplementing with redox might indeed show the improvements that that study showed. By addressing causes of health challenges as opposed to addressing symptoms. We don't need more of this, but in fact, oftentimes when people are on multiple medications and they're still not getting better, what they need to do first, or in addition to that, is to supplement and improve their redox homeostasis. And then oftentimes the needs for some of these medications can be ameliorated. And if there are side effects or complications of those medications, many times redox can help to ameliorate those as well. Let's look at a few before and after pictures, and then we'll wrap this up. Here we have an example of what can happen using this product to correct wrinkles and blemishes and aging skin. And Renew 28 is a wonderful topical application of these molecules that can have very definite anti-aging effects. Here we see the resolution of this dermoid scar on this woman's nose in a way that nothing else can accomplish. Here we see an inflammatory infectious problem on this young man's face that resolved with the topical application of Asea Redox. I've come to some important conclusions, and that is that knowing what I now know about this, I can better appreciate the many problems that develop in the absence of redox homeostasis. And I have a much better understanding what problems will respond well to redox cell signaling because of their lack being a major cause for that same problem. And we can now appreciate the huge array of potential benefits available from redox signaling molecule bioreplenishment with Asea Redox. Could redox help? When you're seeing a patient, ask yourself, are they made of cells like everybody else? Doesn't the origin of their problems come from dysfunctional cells? And all cells repair themselves in the same way. Is there any reason to suspect that that person wouldn't respond in any different way than millions of people who have already benefited from Asea Redox? And is there anything that prevents you or that person from recommending or taking redox? And there shouldn't be, because there's no toxicity. Here's some sources for more information. If you're looking for general science stuff, like I showed you today, that's from pubmed.gov. If you're looking for specific Asea science things like the gene study, that's at www.aseascience.com. If you want to read about experiences or watch videos that people have posted about their experience with the Asea Redox, you can go to one of the Redox story sites, or there's also a Facebook site called Asea Healthy Self. It's a private site. You have to be added by whoever invited you to this presentation. And then there are thousands of testimonies expressed there. Dosage, anywhere from 4 to 8 to 16 ounces, depending on age, health status, how quickly someone would like to see a response. Many times more, a bigger dose in the beginning will hasten that response. You have to take it continuously. You have to take it at least twice a day. And I would recommend a minimum trial period of 3 to 4 months, because we're talking about repairing cells, not covering up symptoms. Just to look at how statistically where things fall out, only about less than 10% of people are going to notice a difference in a week. We know that as soon as you take this, within 15 minutes of taking your first dose, there are physiologic changes happening in your blood work, and we can measure that. But you oftentimes don't notice anything for a while. About 30% in the first month, about 60% at the end of the second month, and 90+% at the end of 3 months are going to notice some beneficial change in their health. But commit to that 90-day trial. Get your patients and people that you recommend Asea to commit to not a week, not a month, not 30 days, but 90 days at the minimum. And the vast majority of them are going to feel a difference. Have them establish their baseline with the results tracker that comes in every case of Asea, and be willing to increase the dose if your body isn't responding appropriately after the first several weeks. Be patient. Sometimes it takes a while to repair enough cells for you to notice a difference. I put this Asea income slide in here because I know that some people may express a concern about whether or not they can afford redox supplement therapy. And this is a way to show them that if they're satisfied with what they're doing, and that they believe that taking a supplement is beneficial, and they start recommending it to friends and family, they can easily earn enough to cover some or all of their monthly Asea purchase. So that's a way to offset the cost of Asea. And if you're a health professional that's looking at starting to be a regular recommender of Asea Redox, that monthly average income column may be of interest to you, because it's not all that difficult to develop incomes in that gold and platinum level within a month or within months, if not a year or less, by recommending Asea. So Asea is changing the world one cell at a time. And we invite you to help in that goal, to help more people change their lives with Asea Redox. So thank you very much for attending. Hopefully this has given you a little better understanding of Asea Redox and redox in general, and given you a tool that you can use to further research this by going to PubMed or googlescholar.com and searching redox signaling and whatever other health topic you would like to see what information is available aligning redox signaling with those parameters that are of interest to you. So thank you very much. Have a great day, and I am going to stop this share. You guys have a great day. Thanks for attending, and we will have another episode the first Saturday of each month.